That when I'm seeing a patient, I hallucinate this diamond, and I'm thinking in 5 different directions, 4 of them being technical, 1 of them being personal. And I'd like to orient you to that meta model. The first part of the meta model is the goal, and we might not necessarily begin there, but for our purposes, for education, we'll start there now. Each one of these choice points has a question that's attached to it. And the question that's attached to the goal is, what is it that we want to communicate? Now, that is not easy. And Eric Berne, the founder of transactional analysis, wrote a book, What Do You Say After You Say Hello? And recognizing that there's a tremendous number of choices. And what we communicate to a patient who comes in and says, I'm depressed, is not uniform. Because now, every time I walk into a courtroom, I start to laugh. And I have a hallucination. And I have this hallucination of me and Erickson. And we're in his living room, and he's telling me the story about Dirty Gertie. And he's laughing so hard when he's telling me the story that he can't catch his breath. And I'm laughing because he's laughing. And I see the courtroom, but I see it through this image that's just hovering in space in front of me that's not real, but it's something that I see. And it's as if my perceptual system became engaged and I became alive by virtue of the experience that he gave me, not by the information. So more and more and more and more, I am in the business of being poetic. So, for example, in 1973, I have my master's degree. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist in California. I come to visit Milton Erickson for the first time. It's a long story, so I'll segue around that. And I'm sitting with him, and he's trying to explain to me as a novice therapist some principles that would be useful to me, memorable to me, in doing psychotherapy. So he draws 3 lines on a piece of paper. 1 line that is vertical, 1 line that is horizontal, and 1 line that is diagonal. And he gives me the piece of paper. And he says to me, what's this? And I look at it, and I look at it, and I look at it, and I try to be an intelligent student. Well, it's just 3 lines on a piece of paper, 1 vertical, 1 horizontal, and 1 diagonal. And finally I say, I don't know. What is it? And Erickson does this. And then he says, you talk to your patients, you ask them questions, you don't necessarily believe what they tell you, you look for confirmation. Now, as a young therapist, if he would have said, Jeff, one of the important principles in doing therapy is to pay attention to minimal cues, I would have written down in my notes, pay attention to minimal cues, and I would have forgotten about it, never read those notes. But here we are, and we are 38 years later, and I can still recount to you that moment, because what he did is he took a simple idea, he gift-wrapped it into an experience, he gave me that experience, I had to activate to realize the essence of that, and hence it became fixed in my memory, became alive. And this was the essence of Erickson. What do you want to communicate? How can I gift wrap that? How can I create an experience that makes a simple idea come alive? So a student is saying to Erickson, is this what you do in these cases? And Erickson says, let's go outside. And so they walk outside. And Erickson says, well, look down the street. What do you see? And the student says, well, I see trees. Erickson says, well, that's right, but look more closely. Tell me what you see. And the student says, oh, yeah, one of the trees is slanted from the east to the west. All of the other trees are slanted from the west to the east. Erickson says, that's right. For every rule, there's an exception. Now that is the most circuitous way to go about making a point. Rather than just saying it, he would take the student out into the street, look down the street, and create a drama, an experience that would take a simple idea and make it come alive. Because part of the problem in psychotherapy is that people know in their left hemisphere, but do they necessarily realize what they know? And part of our job is to help to build a bridge between the land of knowing and the land of realizing. People know that they should be kinder in relationships. People know that they should eat a healthy diet. People know that they can change their mood, but to change their habits. But do people realize what they know? And we have to think, how do you traverse, how do you create a bridge between the land of knowing and the land of realizing? And what I will entertain to you is that it's the experiences that we live that help us to traverse that bridge. But truthfully, there was a logic and a method to what I was doing with that non-induction. But effectively, I was being a poet. And yet, I had a hallucination, because I was hallucinating a diamond as I was working with you, and if I was a baseball player, I was running the bases.